Hey guys, Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we had the Myth Makers. What was that one about?
Well, one of my favorites as far as a good story. Landed in ancient Troy, literally on the last day or the last week of the Trojan War. Vicky gets captured, and they take her into the city where Cassandra warns about her, and they call her by a new name. They call her Cressida. And we find out all sorts of weird stuff about the people we thought were heroes, that, Menelaus is a weakling, and that Paris is a kind of a preening little twit, and all sorts of wonderful stuff, which was kind of fun. And then Stephen volunteers to go and get Vicky, and he gets captured, and all sorts of things happen. And ultimately what happens is the Doctor is forced to give Agamemnon the idea of how to get into the city, which they then use, and of course all hell breaks loose. And shock of all shocks, Vicky stays behind with a young man named Troilus.
Yeah.
And they meet up with Aeneas, and they literally leave Troy and go found the Roman people.
Yeah.
At least that's the story.
Yeah, for a girl who came from, I believe it was the 25th century, to stay behind in... Not even in Troy, like, what's left of the Trojan people. Like, it's a bit of a leap.
Yeah.
We also took along one of Cassandra's handmaidens.
Yes, which was very odd that, I guess Stephen was wounded.
Yeah,
and,
so...
she helped get him into the TARDIS, and then the Doctor closed the door and took off with her still there.
Yeah, like, she's not... At this point, she's really not a character.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that it's like, oh, well, she's the companion now. And
she had like 3 lines in the entire episode, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I don't even think they were like, they might have been like 3 broken English lines, I guess because she's uneducated, or I guess
she's a serving girl. Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. And now for something completely different, the Daleks.
Back to the Daleks.
Yeah. Now it's interesting because we just had the chase, let's say 4 serials ago, so about 4 weeks ago. Yet the last time we had the Daleks, we had an entirely different cast of companions, because we had Ian, Barbara, and Vicky. Now we have none of them, and now we have Stephen and Katarina. And it's just like the change that has occurred over the past few weeks is crazy. So
yeah, it's a quick turnover. And didn't somebody in the comments say that the Mythmakers was even Verity Lambert's last one, or is this the Daleks one? Her last one.
It might have. It was either Mythmakers or Mission to the Unknown. I think by now she's gone, actually. Yeah. So, which means that pretty much, other than technically Cindy Newman, who was still there at the BBC, the only person who's still from the original casting crew of the production is William Hartnell. Yeah. So, and he's probably the one who. It's about time for him to, gracefully exit. So,
yeah. Must be getting close.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we are getting close to his regeneration. Though I'm pretty sure he has completely different companions when he regenerates. So that'll be interesting. Who knows? Maybe in this serial we'll lose Stephen. I don't know. That'd be weird. Especially that would be really short. Like, at least Vicky, it's like, okay, that was a decent amount of time for her. It's just so suddenly after Ian and Barbara, so I don't know.
Kind of a shock.
Yeah.
Now, here's one thing that I've, building on that one-off episode where we saw the Daleks and their new Grand Coalition. I seriously don't remember this from the 1960s when I watched it first. But it strikes me, since we've really done the Daleks are supposed to represent, not specifically the Nazis, but, that idea of this fascist society that's, trying to make everybody like them, or, take over and eliminate those who aren't like them. It's like, how far can you go with that theme?
Yeah. It is interesting that you could almost argue the Daleks are very one note, yet that one note has lasted so long because, they were that popular, all these cool, robot dudes and stuff, but how do you keep going for the next 50 years on that? And I've gone a decent way. I'm about 9 seasons into modern Doctor Who, and every time they show up, it's still, pretty interesting. They get something new going, but still, they are kind of the same old Daleks at the end of the day.
Now, we saw Remembrance of the Daleks. Was that the 5th or 6th Doctor? When we were doing our tour of Classic Who.
Yeah.
So we do know that they come up with some new stuff. It's not just the same one note all the time. But again, so close to the last time we've seen them, it makes you wonder, where's this going? Are they, seriously, is this a cash grab? They just putting them on because they need the viewers? So I'm hoping that there's some really, good through lines here that literally don't have anything to do with World War II.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is that, with the chase, that was at least something different. It's like, okay, we're going through times, we're running from the Daleks, and they have time machines, and they're specifically trying to take out the Doctor. But this one, it sounds like, okay, we're going to invade Earth again, but now the Daleks just have allies. Like, I don't know, are they going to be like the Italians and the Japanese from World War II? Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I could think is because there was... Someone said that, Mission to the Unknown almost was supposed to be a backdoor pilot for a Dalek-centric show without the Doctor or anything. So, which obviously never got off the ground, and I don't know how that could have gone off the ground.
Yeah.
Like, the Daleks really only work because the Doctor is there,
Now, here's what I'm hoping for. Again, being the history people that we are, I'm kind of hoping that somewhere we're going to see this grand alliance who are supposed to help the Doctor. But then, just like in World War II, for example, Hitler signs the non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. They invade Poland. Everything's going well for the first 2 years. And then Hitler turns his back on the agreement, invades Russia. The Russians then come out and overwhelm the Germans there in Russia and push them all the way back to Berlin. So I'm kind of hoping that we see, again, if that's where this is going, if we're going to continue the whole Nazi thing, that we see ultimately the Nazis' aggression against their own allies is what will ultimately do them in.
Yeah. Yeah, that... Maybe. I don't know. But see, then there's the other problem of, at a point, the Nazis ended. Like, at least, the Nazi party in Germany, in World War II, all that ended.
Yeah.
The Daleks can't end. I feel like even at this point in the show, the Daleks cannot end. This is their 4th time coming back, so...
Well, maybe this, again, is setting up the idea that some Daleks do not believe what other Daleks believe, and we get, literally a Dalek civil war, or, some Neo-Daleks, as opposed to the Paleo-Daleks.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. We're just completely off topic here.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to figure this out because this is 12 episodes, and we don't know what they're going to be doing for 12 episodes.
And several of them are not the actuals. We're just going to see the recons, so
yes,
that's going to be even more painful.
9 of these 12 episodes are missing, and it's going to be rough. It's definitely going to be rough. I think... Well, now I gotta look it up because I never remember fully. I think the next one is complete. Let me see. No. Okay. Well, so the serial after this is completely missing, but the next one after that is a complete serial. Granted, that's like 5 weeks from now, so it'll be a little bit.
The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. Yeah, I vaguely remember teaching that in world history.
So I guess that'll be the next historical. So, I also just feel like this is just going to be weird because we don't have our normal companions. Ian and Barbara, who were there for 3 Dalek serials. Vicky, who was at least there for 1 Dalek serial. And it's like... And now we have Steven. I guess at least Steven showed up during the last Dalek serial, but he didn't really interact with them. And then we have... Katarina, who I don't know how she's going to interact with anything,
The fact that she's from 1200 BC and she's going to be overwhelmed first by the TARDIS and then by the Daleks and then by people who are humanoid but not human, so this should be interesting.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, it turns out that, she's a traveler from the future, too, and happened to be stuck there and got, I mean, we're riffing here.
That'd be a huge coincidence if that was the case, so... I guess that's pretty much it. We are watching 4 episodes today, so it will take us 3 videos, 3 weeks to get through this 12-parter. So we might as well go ahead and get started with the Daleks' master plan. Here we go.
Hang in there.
We've got to get through to Earth first, or the whole solar system's finished.
That looks a little bit like the Brigadier.
Try them again.
Let's try to remember that for when the credits pop up, because he does really look like him.
The guardian of the solar system is going away on holiday. He will, no doubt, say a few well-chosen words. It's not for another 20 minutes.
So there's an entire guardian of the solar system.
This path was laid by the signing of the Non-Aggression Pact of 3975. Now, in this year of 4000, we can feel justly proud of that pact.
Non-Aggression Pact
May the
of
past
39.
25 years prove that they are the dawn of an everlasting peace, which will spread throughout the universe.
It's weird, we said the Daleks would do that.
Neville Chamberlain, Peace in Our Time.
The life ahead is built.
All that will happen is I'll hit one of those spiked plants. I nearly fell on one before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely the same place.
Moving. I'll make
It
sure
must
we
be the
avoid
rescue
the
party.
plants. If I fall and hit one, you know what happens then. Get out of here or I'll kill you now.
Well, the sound is certainly better.
Yeah. I'm 95% convinced that is the Brigadier, by the way.
Splendid. Now you know which switch to pull to close the door, don't you? So I want you to do that straight away. I have my key to let myself in. Yes, this child, key. This opens the door from the outside. Now go in, please, and shut the door.
Can't get over the fact that it's a house key.
Now, you know what switch closes the door, right? Yes. What's a switch?
What's a door?
Yeah.
Ah, so you've left the key in the door. Well, that's the first big mistake, isn't it? Yes. Really foolish.
Yeah, it's great that he left the key in the door, but you should really have multiple keys.
Ooh. Spanked him on the head with a wrench. Or a spanner.
I call it the magnetic chair. It has a force field strong enough to restrain a herd of elephants. So I wouldn't waste your energy trying to escape.
You've had that this whole time?
Stay there until I direct otherwise.
Haven't had any real intruders inside, has he?
I guess. Other than Ian and Barbara.
Is that our friends from the last time?
Is
Yeah.
this the solar system?
So why not try the tablets? I hate to see anyone die through stupidity.
I do not understand you.
For heaven's sake, girl, take the tablets and give them to him.
What's a tablet?
Yeah.
The tablets in that tube.
Next question is, what's a tube?
Are these tablets?
I am honored to be here
Oh, dear.
and to be part of your plan to conquer Earth and all the planets in the solar system.
Very Spock-like eyebrows there.
But why does he need to do that? He's the Guardian, or whatever. Whatever that means.
Yeah, why did Stalin sign the Non-Aggression Pact?
I guess. Whoa. That's
Dubbed in. Day of Armageddon. Alright, wait.
Yeah.
Katarina.
It is. Nicholas Courtney. Good call.
The young Brigadier.
Yeah. After you said that, I was like, did I hear that he was in a First Doctor episode? And I guess, sure enough, that is the Brigadier.
Now, does he not come back until Pertwee, or is he in the Second Doctor?
No, he does show up with the Second Doctor.
Okay.
At some point when the Second Doctor meets Unit. But I think, he's most prominent in the Third Doctor's era, because the Doctor is stuck at Unit. So, wow, that's really interesting. And a good call on, a reconstruction.
Well,
ironically.
it looked like him without the mustache.
Yeah. And just a few years younger. Well, it's also funny, too, because we saw the introduction of the Brigadier in The Web of Fear with the Second Doctor.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that, ironically, was also in a reconstructed episode. So, I also remembered, sometimes when they show, an actual shot, when the one guy got killed, or the one Dalek that moved, or the spaceship that came down, I think someone said that those shots are like from like promotional material for the episodes, so trailers or something, and they've just been put back into the episode itself.
Now, the thing about the spaceship landing, again, right about this time, the early 60s, there were a lot of, I don't even know how to describe it, puppet animation. Again, I've mentioned it before, Thunderbirds, Fireball, XL5, things like that. That kind of looked like the people who had done those. And again, it was, rocket ships and rescue machines and things like that. But in the background, now that's what struck me, even though it was somewhat dark, those almost beehive-like structures, those looked very reminiscent of some of the Native American tribes who lived in the central part of the United States, including here in Oklahoma. Tribes called the Quapaw and the Caddo and some of the others had that, again, it seemed to be, again, looking like a beehive. Sometimes it's made out of wattle and daub. Sometimes it's made out of what we would call thatch. But yeah, that was kind of interesting to see that, because that is not something, you got all of this other mechanical stuff around, and then this very, very almost ancient kind of buildings in the background. So hopefully what we're going to see here is that the Daleks have landed on a rather primitive planet, and that have simply just taken over.
Yeah, it could be that, because... And then they also, like, brought in the Varga. Because they also said in Mission to the Unknown, like, no one comes to this planet because it's way too hostile. But that just means it's the best place for the Daleks to hide, because they can handle anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was... So that's pretty interesting. I feel like there was something else. Oh, and I guess just speaking of ancient... I don't know how long we're going to be keeping Katarina around, but I can already tell we are not going to be stopping our she doesn't know what anything is joke. It's like, oh, just reach into my pocket. What's a pocket? You grab the tube. What's a tube? Here's the tablet. What's a tablet?
Yeah, see, and that's why this seems very, very strange that they would have picked her up. It seems to me a better person to have taken, strangely enough, would have been Cassandra. First of all, because she would have complained the entire time.
Well,
but she would have been more open to saying, I realize I'm no longer there in Troy. Now, I understand that Cassandra has to stay behind because she was taken as prisoner back to Argos. But somebody other than a servant girl, because this girl, even though she served the royalty, literally knows nothing.
Yeah. It's just so strange. It's like, okay, now, you do know that which switch it is to close the door, right? Yes. But what is a switch? How does any of this compute to her? Unless, the not Brigadier Brett was like, I've got herbs that can help him. She could understand that, but a tablet, is, I don't know. It's such a strange choice, but I actually kind of like that it's like, on the one hand, it's like, it's such an odd choice. Why would you ever do this? But on the other hand, it's like, well, this is something new. Something so completely out of left field. But I don't know. We're definitely going to be joking about that as long as she is on here. So. If only we had hands.
We obey.
I guess that's the deforesting. In the movies they wanted to give the Daleks flamethrowers, but they thought they were too intense. So they gave them fire extinguishers instead.
Now, those noises make you believe that there are birds and animals on the planet, but we haven't seen any other than the plants.
Yeah. Boy, these trees don't really catch easily.
Well, if they're green, if they still are living, they would have moisture in them.
They will not start the meeting without me. I feel like waiting. Yeah.
Trying to show that you have some power with the Daleks. I don't know how well that's going to work out. Daleks are just like, wow, we thought we looked weird.
The meeting is about to begin. You will follow me.
Probably borrowed that costume from a local production of A Christmas Carol. I am the ghost of Christmas yet to come, although he never speaks.
Just put some extra fuzz on the hands and it works.
Why were not one of us of the outer galaxies asked to provide it?
As the Daleks know, Terranium can only be found on one of the dead planets of the solar system. Without this, the Time Destructor is useless. All the plans made here could not succeed.
Also, the one guy with the sharp teeth, that has to be the voice of the Daleks, right? He sounded exactly like him.
Stop! Without him, we can't reach the place of perfection.
We won't. We're going without him.
That's what he told him to do.
Well,
It's interesting that Peter Purvis doesn't get top billing after the Doctor.
yeah, I was gonna say, Steven really got knocked down there in the credits. It's very, very odd.
Now, wait a minute. You got Dalek voices.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see...
No, I think
it doesn't say who
would have
the-
passed it already. Oh well. That guy sounded exactly like the Daleks, and he was like speaking the same way too. So
Could be.
it would make sense, honestly. They reuse the actor. I was thinking like, okay, so we're in this meeting. Maybe next episode will be the meeting itself, and that'll give Hartnell a week off because you just need a dude in a cloak. It doesn't have to be him, but that's over now. So, all right. And also when they said like, oh, we have the core of the Time Destructor, for a second I thought, are we going back to Earth to get the core again? But no, it's something completely different.
Yeah.
So.
And they haven't told us what the Time Destructor is, but apparently it's to stop the Doctor and Time Lords from traveling. That would appear to be...
I would assume, but I don't know. It's the only thing they've mentioned about time, you know? Yeah. So I'm not sure. The most they've really said is just conquest of the universe, so yeah.
Without the Doctor, we'll never reach the place of perfection.
We won't. We're going without him. We're going into countdown.
I think it was fun reading some of her lines. And I also wonder, like whose idea was it to bring in Katarina, and then Terry Nation, did he have to sit down and like, what? I have someone from Troy? What? Okay, I'll head that in. Yeah, they're dragging an image across the screen.
Altitude 5 sections. Speed 3,000.
It's like when they had the Chumblies going across the screen.
Gravitational escape velocity.
You can see the dark outline.
Yeah.
And there, of course, they're just blinking the lights.
They've allied themselves to the rulers of the outer galaxies to take over the universe.
Universe?
Yes, the first objective being Earth, and then the solar system.
It's like, it's kind of funny. It's like, all right, their first stop on universal conquest is Earth. I think that's just being petty. Just because they've lost there specifically.
The Daleks will stop at anything to prevent us.
Wouldn't it be stop at nothing?
Well, yes. We're really beginning to see him fumble the words.
Yeah.
The only craft which stopped there are prison ships bringing out the criminals. If we crash there, we'll be left there to rot the rest of our lives away.
You must try to land softly somewhere.
I can't. This vessel is out of my control.
So it's like Devil's Island.
Well.
Dalek technology is the most advanced in the universe.
Says the man with a plunger on his fist.
Yeah, I've heard that line on a different show, but it was said by Nazis.
Consequently, was in the best position to lead.
Doctor, what are you talking about? This is a spar, the most technically perfect craft in the history of space
Oh,
travel.
yes, quite so. That's why we are stranded on this pimple of a planet whilst you fool with that fuse box. Come on, Doctor.
Oh, there's your bird.
Rather.
Is he about to electrocute the whole swamp?
That should repel any boarders.
Electrified the ladder, maybe.
What's going on? Well, I think that should do the trick, my dear. Come along, let's get this cable back.
I mean, there could be more out there.
Mayday! Next stop, Earth. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that, young man. Now, you've got some thinking to do. Katarina, check up on that door and see that it's secure. You do realize that...
And that's part 3.
All right, so I got to thinking, they called it the Devil's Planet, Devil's Island we were talking about, but that was a French colony in South America. Maybe this is, again, somewhat akin to the original British colony in Georgia, which was also a penal colony, or even Australia, which is when they were, if I recall correctly, suffering from overpopulation. They simply took all of these criminals and dumped them in Australia and basically said, you're out of prison, you're not going to be executed, but on the other hand, this is an untamed continent, and, it's up to you to either survive it and create order and society and et cetera, or you're all going to die. And that's what happened. That's essentially how Australia got started, by people who said, all right, we have to put our former lives behind and come together and make a place where we can all live. So
that's a pretty hardcore way of starting a society. Just like, well, we were going to be imprisoned or executed, but now we're here, which is slightly better, because at least we're alive at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, let's try to build something before we all actually die. So
again, that is a theme carried over into Star Trek, the Wrath of Khan, where they said you are basically being marooned on SETI Alpha 5 or SETI Alpha 6, whichever one it was, and it's up to you whether you live or die.
Yeah. And it could have worked out if a planet didn't just up and explode for no reason.
So obviously one of the guys got on the ship before they closed the door.
Yes,
Must have been the blonde guy.
Yeah, the third guy who I thought he was attacked by a bird, but I guess not.
Screamer or something.
Yeah, whatever they called it. I have to say, it's like, okay, so what are we doing for these 12 episodes? Like, okay, we've got a little bit of filler in there of like, okay, here we are at this planet, and we have to go through this planet for an episode or so, and then we'll be on our way. But for an episode where it's like, okay, we're on this planet, they really didn't do anything on this planet, They didn't even get off the ship. The most they did was just electrify some guys that were coming up, and they're already on their way. They have to deal with this new guy, but still.
But like you said, there's not a lot of filler. I mean, this is for, especially considering that we're having to go through the recons, it's actually very smooth. It's certainly much better than the last one.
Yeah, that's true. It's like it doesn't feel too slow. Like, and it is interesting because again, it's like, okay, well, we're not quite to the actual invasion, but that it might be a few episodes before we actually get there. You know. I think Dalek Invasion of Earth, was that 6 episodes or?
I think it was 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not even to like, if that is like we're ending with the next invasion, then we're not even close to that. So.
What is course of a vessel?
Now I've got some CG models for Daleks. This is really messing my eyes.
707.
Katarina! Katarina!
Oops.
She may have wanted to, dear boy. She wanted to save our lives. Must have been quick. I hope she's reached that place of perfection. Yes.
Well, that was grim.
Is that? Is that really it for her?
Looks like it.
4-episode companion that got all of 8 lines?
It's one of the daughters of the gods.
Speaking of CG models. Wow, that actress got screwed, didn't she?
Where can we land?
An experimental plant a little way off from Central City. I have a friend there who I think will help us.
The Flash? If you're going to Central City.
Oh, I thought it was Terranium, Terrain, like earth metal, but it was from Uranus.
Francis, they don't like him. Agreed that his is the largest galaxy, but he's already demanding too much say in what goes on. They'll want him out of the way.
It's bad if you think the Daleks like anyone other than themselves.
Just that. Mother Chen will be next in line.
Wonder if this is Brett's friend that he was
You know
talking
what's
about.
happened?
Yes.
Is that Jean Marsh again?
You know how many there are? Ask him how he came to know that the core of their Time Destructor was Terranium. Don't be so ridiculous. Why didn't you mention when you were telling me?
It's always funny when people get caught on this in
For
fiction.
heaven's sake, you must have heard him.
It's getting really grim.
On point!
Great job, Sarah.
Give me the Terranium.
Sarah, please listen.
Give me the Terranium.
You too.
4 people dead in this episode.
I mean, I knew we couldn't.
Walker! Walker, where are you?
I knew we couldn't keep him past his serial, but still.
All exits of the main block are to be guarded.
That's Brett Ryan.
Yes. He's dead. The others must be killed as well. They will be shot on sight, but aim for the head.
I need to see who Sarah is. It is Jean Marsh. Good lord. She was King Richard's sister.
Yeah. Another good call.
Wow.
Terry Nation's not screwing around this time.
So
This is a dark one, actually. At the very least, this episode was pretty dark.
yeah.
Goodness, we have 8 more episodes of this serial.
Well, I mean, maybe he's trying to show that the fascism is going to lead to, death and destruction.
He's been preparing us this whole time. We started out easy, some cavemen, some goofy aliens and stuff like that, and now murder.
Whew. And poor Katarina sacrificing herself to save everybody else.
Barely
how did she know to open that door?
With that button, I don't know. I don't know. How does she know what a button is? Oh, man. And again, it's like, I knew we couldn't keep Nicholas Courtney forever, because, if this was a normal episode, I'd probably say, like, oh, well, he'd be the new companion, but it's Nicholas Courtney. We know he can't stick around, because eventually he'll be the Brigadier. But I was hoping we'd at least keep him around through the rest of the serial. Oh boy, this normally when we watch a recon, a lot of times the recons are good, but we're kind of sitting here like, all right, we gotta watch the recon and then we'll get to something pretty good. But this one is really just going all out. So
darkness falls across the land.
Yeah, jeez Louise. Okay, so we can go ahead and hop into the notes on this one. The first thing I wrote down is Guardian Chen. An interesting, like, kind of side antagonist, I guess. And it's also because, they introduce, like, the Guardian of the Solar System. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what could that possibly mean? And it's like, okay, so I guess the Guardian of the Solar System, like, has... I guess he's like the governing head of the solar system.
President, monarch, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
But again, the idea that I'm catching is that his particular quest for power and his plan to work with the Daleks makes him, to me, a stand-in for Joseph Stalin. That here's a guy who says, I'm going, by signing this non-aggression pact with the Daleks, I will ultimately get the power. And notice he's also setting up Trantisky and some of these others to eliminate them slowly but surely so that he becomes the one who will be the major antagonist against the Daleks in the end. And I suspect that's where that's going. So, I mean, if that's true...
when you really stop and think about it, he seems like the most obvious, like, I guess, allegory or metaphor for, stuff like that where, we've had the joke that, every time you bring up the Nazis or the communists, and you can be like, okay, well, you can kind of see that in there. It's like, with Chen, it is very obvious that's what it's supposed to be, down to the, what did they say, the non-aggression pact of
39-something.
39-something. It's like, that's getting very obvious there. So, and also just like, with him saying it's like, he's like, he had to get a lot of power and keep his power for 50 years while he was mining the Terranium. He's definitely like, it's nice to have a second antagonist as well, because like we said at the beginning of the video, it's like, okay, well, we have the Daleks again. It's like, okay, well, what are we gonna do with them? And I like that we have all these other like side antagonists with them. So I wrote down Brett, and again, that was a good call in the first episode that was Nicholas Courtney. And I have to say that the mustache he'll eventually grow does add 10 years to him. But it was nice having him. He kind of just felt like the Brigadier, honestly, like just down to, he was a military man, and he was saying like, I can't risk Earth's safety for this one girl and stuff like that. Like that, from what little I've seen of the Brigadier, that did sort of feel right for the Brigadier. So I'm sure there's like some sort of theory that maybe it's like a descendant or something.
Of course, having seen him as a military man here, I'm sure the producers later on said, hey, who would be a good guy for this new character we're coming up with? That guy who did the Dalek Master Plan. So, I mean, I'm sure that probably helped out.
And again, I kind of figured we'd keep him through the whole 12 episodes, but nope. We're down to the Doctor and Steven now.
We done fried his fritters.
Yeah, so
is that my note?
Yeah, you wrote down the spanner.
All right. Completely off the subject, but going back to the 1960s. Of course, spanner is the British word for wrench. So, here in the United States, we have a saying that when you want to foul things up, you throw a wrench into the works. Well, of course, in England, you throw a spanner into the works. And right about this time, about 65, 66, John Lennon of the Beatles wrote a book of really bizarre poetry, but instead of calling it a spanner in the works, it was called a Spaniard in the works. It's like throwing a Spaniard into the works to mess. Anyway, but if you have never read Spaniard in the Works, it is hysterically funny. I really enjoyed growing up with the Beatles, and then finding out that John Lennon was not just a musician, but he was also kind of an offbeat poet, and to find out that George Harrison and Ringo Starr got involved with movie making, and of course Paul McCartney would later score one of the James Bond movies. So I mean, these guys were not just phenomenal musicians for rock and roll, but expanded their world quite a bit beyond the Fab Four phenomenon.
Yeah. Also, if you want to talk about something weird that one of them did, so Ringo Starr apparently has like a website where he posts art that he made in MS Paint. And apparently, like, I guess while he's like on the road on tours or something, he would get bored, get out his computer, and make the weirdest looking art. I hope I can remember to put it on screen. I am totally looking it up right now so that I can show Dad, because this is... Oh, it's amazing. So, Ringo Starr. It's two R's. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, like this. It's all like the weirdest, like, yeah, just. I mean, and again, it's MS Paint, but it's just like, yeah, it's all the weirdest things. Like
that's kind of. I mean, obviously, I don't want to call it impressionist, but it's a modern art fused with some pop art backgrounds and stuff like that. So again, that's very 60s.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I would expect. From him.
And I think, like, because I remember seeing like a video where someone was like looking at all his stuff like on his website, and I think like in the descriptions on some of them, it's like, well, the easy way to think about it is if there's a hat, it's probably called Hat Man, and it's like, that's great, man. That's great. So,
Chef a la mode.
Yeah. So this is the most off topic we've ever been.
Wow.
In the history of this show, but yeah, I just wanted to. I hope I will specifically write down to be sure that I put it on screen for all of you to enjoy.
Okay.
So, and I'm just gonna leave that on the computer screen while we talk. Okay. So moving on, we did sort of talk about the footage in this episode where, you know, we were told that sometimes there'd be like, you know, promotional trailer shots and everything, and then they would be worked back in, which it worked better here than I think it was in Galaxy 4, where I think they only had like a shot of Steven. He was like on the ground, and then he got up, and then it went right back to recons, and it's like, okay, well, why put that in anyway? But here it's like, okay, we get like almost a solid minute of footage. The interesting thing, though, the really interesting thing is that whoever made this reconstruction put in the time and effort and probably money into making CG models of the Daleks to have move around. And it's kind of interesting to see because, like, the environment is, you know, just a shot from just a still shot, and there will just be, like, a character cut out, and just he's just right there, he doesn't move. And then this CG Dalek will come by, kind of look around, and then keep going.
Yeah.
But then, as soon as they would start talking, it would go straight back to just being a still image, and then they just add in lights later. And it's like, I don't know if you really needed to go to all that trouble for that. Like, because, you know, again, going back to Galaxy 4, when we had the Chumbleys, you know, and they were just sort of going across screen. And because I've referenced this, I'll probably put in another one going across the screen.
Oh, look, here's a Chumbly walking across our screen.
Yeah. Oh boy, those. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes to do one of those. So, yeah, I'm sure I enjoyed that I'm bringing this up again. But yeah, so like I would understand doing that for the Daleks, but I just want to know whose idea was for like 3 shots in this entire episode to just make CG models of the Daleks. That seemed kind of odd, you know? Let's see. We had the meeting of the Alliance, which was interesting. And we really didn't get much out of that meeting, looking back on it. Just that the Daleks have created something called the Time Destructor, whatever that is. No one really knows like how it works. Only the Daleks can really build it. But it was Chen who had to specifically mine the core of the Time Destructor, and it said it took him 50 years. So the Daleks have been planning something for a long time.
Now, this may be way off base, but again, you know, me and history. We always talk about the Manhattan Project here in the United States, But the reason why we accelerated the Manhattan Project as fast as we did is because we knew the Germans were trying that.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, it was like in Norway or one of the Scandinavian countries. They were working on this idea of heavy water. The idea of making some kind of uranium, plutonium, just some kind of nuclear weapon. And they were, again, trying to get scientists from all over what was, at that time, the, I guess, Nazi Empire, the Third Reich, under their control to come in and help them. But they were never able to completely get that done, which is why ultimately the Allies would win the war, because we were able to come up with the way to not only get the uranium or plutonium or whatever it was that they were using, and then test the bombs there in New Mexico, and then finally use them to end the war in Japan.
Yeah.
So, it makes me wonder if this Terranium project is, again, a very kind of vague allusion to the Manhattan Project.
I would say it is probably an allusion to that, just judging by kind of how obvious Chen is as a sort of Stalin allegory, and just the Daleks being the Daleks, and a Nazi allegory. So.
And later on, I'll tell you, there's another odd little twist to the story of Chen, but we'll get to that in just a minute.
Yeah. Now, I think they also said that one thing they were going to do was destroy one of the galaxies with the Time Destructor, which is a pretty powerful weapon if it can destroy an entire galaxy. So it might be something like that. So yeah. And then we had the Terranium, which both of us misspelled, which was interesting. And yes, it was mined from the planet Uranus, so the most horribly named planet in existence.
For those of you in Great Britain, you are probably aware that we here in America mispronounce it horribly. It has always been Uranus.
Yeah,
which of course leads to all sorts of jokes.
Oh, it's unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. Even if you say Uranus, it's like, well, if you say Uranus, it sounds like urine. So it's no help that way. So it's just very unfortunate. And isn't it? That's not a Roman name, is it?
I can't remember if it's Roman or Greek, but yeah, it's father of the gods. It's like father of Zeus or father of Jupiter.
I think it's the only one that's not named, other than Earth, I guess. It's the only one that's not named like with all the other Roman planets. I think that one is specifically Greek, and it's like it had to be that one that was specifically Greek. Yeah. Like you had to go with the Greek name.
Although again, remember the Romans basically just subsumed the Greek culture.
Yeah.
The whole Victor Victus, the victim becomes the victor, because literally when the Romans took over the Greeks, they basically took everything good that the Greeks did and began to make that into their own Roman customs.
Yeah.
But Apollo, for example, was Apollo in Greek and in Roman. Now, Zeus became Jupiter and Hera became Juno and that sort of thing. But there were one or two where the names simply crossed over from the Greek into the Roman, and Uranus might be one of those. Although I keep, for some reason, thinking of Kronos as being the father of Zeus. But again, it's been years since I've taught.
But shouldn't Kronos be Pluto?
No, because Pluto would be Hades.
Oh, that's true.
I think.
Yeah. I think Uranus might be Kylus because I think I looked that up one time.
Okay.
If I don't know, but yeah, I'm pretty sure at the very least it's the one that's not named like everyone else, basically.
Yeah.
So, we went to Desperus. That happened.
Which only seemed to, the whole point of that, I thought perhaps they were going to, pick up some warriors or fighters that would help them, and instead they, electrocuted a couple of them, at least knocked them out.
Yeah.
Picked up a guy who apparently his only function was to get rid of Katarina.
Yeah.
And now maybe that's Terry Nation going, saddle me with this girl from Troy who doesn't know squat, so I'm going to figure out a way to get rid of her.
Yeah,
so, that's cynical, but that
last time you guys had me on, I had Ian and Barbara and Vicky. This time you give me Steven, who is all right, but he's no Ian or Barbara, and you give me Katarina. What am I supposed to do with a girl from Troy? It's like that. Yeah, that was.
But then it makes you wonder. This girl, Sarah Kingdom, after, 9 more episodes? No, 8 more episodes.
Yeah.
That maybe she will turn good and be one of the companions.
Maybe. Maybe, but are we going to... Does that mean keeping that actress around, too? Then...
Well, no, I don't think Jean Marsh... Again, who knows?
Unless they recast her. I don't know. Yeah, I guess we're kind of, we're kind of out of speculation on this one because like 8 people died in this episode alone, and while I guess it, like, someone like Brett, like, okay, I guess it makes sense, we couldn't keep him forever, I just thought we'd keep him longer, but boy, Katarina just gone. Like, okay, I hope.
And then the gratuitous shot of the bodies floating away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's bad enough that she's dead, but then to show her floating away, that's just cruel.
Like, all right, kids, good night.
Have nightmares.
Yeah, it's like, I hope, like, when she was hired, she wasn't told, like, oh yeah, you're going to be the next, companion, after, Susan and Vicky's like, you're the next one. It's like, I hope she wasn't told that. I hope it was like, well, yeah, we're bringing you in for a few episodes. Yeah, we just need a placeholder, and it's like, because otherwise, she really, we kind of say, like, all right, it's very quick and sudden when a companion leaves on classic Doctor Who. Not that sudden or quick.
No.
Like, it hasn't even been a full episode, like a full serial with her. So, let's see. I totally misspelled Cable, didn't I? It's L-E, not E-L, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. But I mean, that was interesting, just them electrifying the ladder and knocking the 2 guys out, so...
Well, we assume that, for all we know, they're dead.
Yeah, he said that it knocked them out, but... Yeah, I don't know.
And again, you want to talk about... Here's a casting call. We need a couple of guys who look like, convicts who've been unshaven for 10 years, castaways on a desert planet, and we're going to use you for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to electrocute 2 of you and blow another one out of an airlock. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'll take that part, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another.
Yeah, I'll take that. I need to pay rent anyway, so... and the last thing you wrote down was sympathizers.
All right, now, talk about a weird twist here. I got we've been playing up this idea of Chen as Stalin, but during that same time period in Great Britain and in America, what's his name? Charles Lindbergh in the United States. Great hero of the United States, first man to fly solo across the Atlantic, yada yada. These were people who were Nazi sympathizers. These were people who said, look, this Hitler guy, yeah, he's kind of crazy, but what they're talking about, they're going to bring order out of the chaos. There were people, including the King of England, who was at the time thinking, I've gone over, I've talked to Herr Hitler, and he's really not all that bad as what you think. And ultimately, I know that the King of England stepped down because of the woman that he loved, but there were also undercurrents of, this Hitler guy's getting worse and worse, and we got a king who is somewhat sympathetic to him, so maybe it's just as well that he stepped down and we get his younger brother George to take the throne. So, I don't know, but I just got this weird feeling that there's this, we got, Stalin on one side who says, I'm going to bide my time, use the non-aggression pact to build up my own forces so that I'll be able to take over. But then you also get these undertones of, well, they're really not all that bad. Perhaps we can help them out and work with them. So,
I mean, he did say, like, that he wants to rule alongside the Daleks, and he doesn't like, at least for now, he doesn't have any plans to defeat the Daleks once and for all, and then he will rule the universe alone. It's almost, you could almost say maybe it's a bit like Star Wars with the Master and Apprentice Sith. Like, it seems to be sort of like that. Like, I guess he's going to be the Darth Vader of the universe. But yeah, it's like, so they could be sort of like, playing both angles with him. That it's like, yeah, he is, like, maybe publicly he's being more like Stalin with the non-aggression pact and everything. But secretly he's actually more of a sympathizer with the Daleks.
Yeah. And this just popped up in my mind. In Scandinavia, and I can't remember what country it was from, but there was some local leader who seemed to be, sympathetic to the Nazis and ultimately ended up betraying his people, kind of like Benedict Arnold did during the American Revolutionary War. And I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Quizling. And that word became, I guess, the metaphor, the simile, whatever you want to call it, for people during World War II who sympathized with the Nazis. People who would betray their own people for the approval of the Nazis became Quizlings, just like today we say somebody is a Judas or a Benedict Arnold here, as somebody who ultimately betrayed his own country for his own good.
Yeah. This episode is definitely like, between the Stalin stuff and now the sympathizer angle. It's like this one is definitely like a bit more like in there, like poignant about the allegories this time around. So, well, and it's also interesting too because it's all on like it's mainly all on Chen, and the Daleks are really just kind of there. Like, they're obviously doing their whole shtick with being the master race and the great Daleks and stuff like that. But a lot of it now is coming from Chen, and there is a lot with him. And we're only 4 episodes into a 12-episode serial. So
now, here's something else. Although he does not appear to me to be Asian, the name Chen obviously sounds Chinese, and of course, it's right at this time, the late 30s, early 40s, when China started flirting with communism, which of course would finally give rise to Mao Zedong. So I don't know if they're tying the Chinese Communist Revolution in here.
Maybe.
If he is, he's going way deeper than the average teenager would have known way back then.
Yeah, that's true. This is all like, we're still on the kids show, at this point. Like, even if, like, okay, I don't know how old, like, the average person was when the show started, but this is only a few years later, so the kids haven't grown up that much, and it's like, man, Terry Nation's kind of going nuts in this episode.
Yeah. Again, I think I was the target audience. I would have been, like, 11, 12, 13, 14 during this time period, and a lot of the stuff that they do is way over the heads of 9, 10, 11-year-olds. So this is for very young teens, teenagers up to the early 20s, and so throwing this stuff at them, this is really grim stuff.
Yeah, of course, by putting all that stuff in, it makes it all the more fascinating. Nearly 60 years later, when the two of us are watching it. Although all the grim, Katarina just blasted out into space. That's harsh. That's very harsh. Yeah, that's that one was pretty cruel. I'm very curious as to was that always the plan, or were they just like, oh yeah, we only wanted to keep her around. You can kill her however you want, or I don't know who came up with that specific idea. So.
Well, it's very heroic on her part, but still, that's. Just poor innocent girl who got picked up out of Troy by accident and then makes the ultimate sacrifice to save people she's only known for a couple of days.
Yeah, so I guess this is our first companion death of the series.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was odd.
Let's not dwell on that. Let's finish this up and.
Yeah, well, we're kind of out of stuff to talk about on this one.
Was that my last note?
That was it.
Okay.
That was the last note. So, so we got allegories and dead people in this one, and we have 8 more episodes to go through. So,
one last little bizarre note.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we are now in the year 2020. All right, so we're almost 70 years past the time that Doctor Who was talking about. Back then, in the 60s, there would have been 5 billion people on Earth. We have almost 7 or maybe just over 7 billion people now.
Yeah.
But here we are in the year 7,000, right? 5.
They said it's 4,000, I believe.
Well, anyway.
Yeah.
But there's only 40 people in the entire solar system? 40 billion?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It's like, okay, so did Earth not grow in the past 2,000 years? And... unless they're saying, maybe there's not a lot of people on the other planets, but
still,
yeah,
that doesn't seem to extrapolate where we were to where we are now.
Yeah, that is pretty odd. Because even just was it 60 years later? We have an extra 2 billion people since then, like you said. So the fact that in 2,000 years we still haven't, although granted, maybe they're thinking, maybe Terry Nation is things like, well, in 2164 or whenever, like most of the population of Earth died to the last Dalek invasion I wrote. Yeah. So,
well, maybe, but yeah, it's just that was just an odd little thing that stuck out for me. So,
which also, is there life on the rest of on other planets in the solar system, or are those just colonists? Like, they haven't explained that yet. Like, okay, we have Chen, who's the guardian of the solar system, and they're going to go invade Earth first, but they haven't really mentioned the other planets.
No, but they did say something about people on Mars. I remember specifically. And then, of course, if they were mining on Uranus to get the Terranium, there had to be some kind of colony there.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. We now know, and I think we would have known in the 60s, there's just certain planets that we're not going to be able to live on. All right? We're not going to be able to live on Venus. We're not going to be able to live on Jupiter. I mean, just the gravity alone of Jupiter would kill us. Yeah. But there are moons of Saturn and moons of Jupiter that we could live on. The Titan, which I recall correctly, is one of the moons of Saturn, and Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter, are probably habitable. But again, the outer planets, Neptune, Pluto, there's simply not much in the way of life-supporting elements there.
Yeah.
So Mars, yes, definitely. Asteroids in the asteroid belt, and a couple of planets, a couple of moons of some of the larger planets. But yeah, getting out into the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, it seems highly unlikely. And I don't. Again, in the 60s, I don't think we would have thought that we could have lived out that far.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if they touch on that a bit in the coming episodes, because I mean, this would kind of be the point in the serial where we'd be like, okay, so that's about the halfway point, and now we're gonna go see the climax next time. It's like we're only a third of the way through the episode,
We got no clue what's going to happen next.
Yeah, especially with the twists and turns that we've been provided in these 4 episodes. Yeah. So I guess that's pretty much it. You got anything else?
Well, no. I mean, speculation that if we're indeed following the course of the Second World War, then we're going to somehow find the collapse of Italy, and
which I guess that could be Chen ratting out the representative from the largest galaxy. It could maybe be something
the Battle
like
of Britain. Basically the air war over Britain, which the British won. More than 1,900 German planes of the Luftwaffe shot down. So the Americans joining in. Who knows where this is going? Yeah. And it's just wow.
And it's also interesting because it's like, okay, this one seems to be very much like World War II in space, and it's like, and that's all great, but it honestly feels like the two things that you would think are the major enemies in this, the Doctor and the Daleks, they're kind of not playing as big of a role in this as you would think. Like, it seems to mainly be Chen and his people and the other representatives, and also people on Earth like Brett, and the Doctor is kind of just going along for the ride, and maybe in the next few episodes he'll get a bit more involved. Yeah. But even the Daleks are sort of taking a step back in their own serial, where where it's like they're taking a step back, and there's discourse among their allies. So so it's definitely different from the other Dalek serials we've had. Yeah. I'll at least give them that. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I got nothing else.
All right. So with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit the notification bell. That was it. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.